Hello and welcome to the Naked Parent Podcast. My name's Chad Ratliffe. I'm your host, as usual, but not as usual. Today we have Joan Garcia with us, who is an author of what sounds like an amazing book, which I'm looking forward to checking out, like all of you listeners who haven't checked it out. It's called Life with a Side of Autism, and we're going to hear more about that. And also, Joan is a degreed philosopher of law and a dual credentialed educated mother of 25 years, worked both in the public and private sectors. And I'm so excited for you to get to know more about Joan. Joan, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So can you tell us a little bit about this 25 years of motherhood and how that started and how you got into writing a book about autism?
Well, motherhood of 25 years would be a long story to share as an intro here. But I was 17 when I graduated high school, and I got married right away. I was in love. He was 3 years older, and that's where it all started. 9 months later, quite literally, we had our first child. My oldest is 25 years old now. And then we had our second child, and while I was pregnant, he left. We were young. He left for another little girl, and then I had my daughter, and I've been raising her ever since on my own. She has autism, and it's been quite the journey. So that's kind of that story. And then as far as writing a book, man, any of you parents out there listening, I know you know all the experiences that we have and the crazy moments and the ups and downs and ins and outs and the 24/7s and the teachers at school not always understanding what we're going through. And I thought, I'm just going to write this stuff down. These are incredible stories these are what I shared were what I considered to be the most incredible stories. And by incredible, I mean either incredibly horrible and emotionally draining and off the wall, just movie-like. And then some of the incredible stories on the other side of it, just the ones that had me in tears laughing, just joyously bending over, cry laughing with her teachers because of certain things that she had done that were just hilarious and hysterical. And then everything that I learned from those experiences, because even the ones that seemed the most traumatic to me, there were such deep lessons embedded in those stories, and as a human being I grew so much, and I understand more now about life and about the human spirit and about fighting through and persevering and all of it. So I just wanted to write a book and hope that somebody could read it and say, yeah, I'm going through that, and I can identify with that perseverance thing you're talking about. Yeah. So that's how that goes.
And so you have 3 children?
I do. My youngest is 16 now, 16 and a half.
And so you're, and how old is your daughter?
She's 23.
23. And you said that when did you find out that, or when did you feel like when did something change for you towards the autism side of life?
Yeah. With Caitlin, she was 8 months old the first time that I had her vaccinated. I was pro-vaccine. My oldest son had some pretty high fevers with his first set of shots, and he had them on time, so I wanted to wait a little while to have hers. She was about 8 months old. And within an hour of getting the shots, so the drive home in about 25, 30 more minutes, she had a fever of 105.7. It lasted for a full 15 days. It didn't go up or down or sideways or any which way. I was giving her Tylenol, Motrin, and Benadryl alternating, which is what they had instructed me to do. I had taken her to the ER 6 times and 3 regular doctor's visits in a period of 15 days. And when her fever finally broke, I mean, it was like her body was crying sweat. She just, every last pore was just dripping with sweat when her fever broke. And then she just was never the same. She couldn't sit up anymore. She wouldn't roll over. She didn't engage. I was nursing her at the time, and prior to her shots, she would play these little games where she would pull off the breast, really fast, and it would like squirt, and she would, sorry if that's too much information, but she would
Naked Parent Podcast.
Yeah, right. She would giggle and she would laugh and play, and she was doing none of that. She wasn't even looking at me when she would nurse anymore. The only time she was happy is if she was in her carrier seat, staring at the ceiling or nursing. And those were the only things she would do that did not include screaming and crying like she was in constant pain. So that was the first indication that something was wrong, that something had changed, something was different. And then I would say just the lack of milestones over the next several months. She did eventually start to roll over a little bit and scoot around. She did begin walking just right around 14 months, just under 14 months. And then literally within a week or two of learning to walk, she had become obsessed with drinking milk bottles. I had stopped nursing her when she learned how to walk. I figured, okay, she's mobile. It's time for her to eat mobile people food. And so she was obsessed though with the bottle, always had a bottle in her mouth, always drinking milk. I mean, probably almost a gallon of milk a day this girl was going through. And at one point we were rushing out the door and she had already had several milk bottles that day. And I said, you know what, that's enough. You can wait till we get home. I don't want to be late. And she ran herself over with like sheer, pure intention of what she was about to do and just started slamming her head against the ground. Whoa. Like her forehead on the hard entryway tile. Oh. And of course, for a second, I was like, wait, is this really happening? And then I rushed over and, quailed that situation really quickly. And that was kind of what I call the straw that broke the camel's back, because it turned my concerns into a doctor's appointment, which of course, I don't know if other parents go through this still today because they're better at diagnosing, but it took almost a full 2 years to get her doctor to recognize all of her symptoms. And I outline all of that in the book as far as everything, all of the concerns I was sharing and what his response was. But it did take almost a full 2 years to get a diagnosis. But that's how our story started as far as, figuring out that there was something wrong. It didn't start that way. It started out with everything being A-okay, and it changed. So.
Yeah, that's heavy. I would say that of the people that I've interviewed on this show, anybody who has a story about kind of early intervention and the relationship with their doctor is everybody's being told that it's just a delay, come back another day kind of thing. Some were more forceful with no, and some, like myself, we kind of took that as a little hope and, kind of went back and said, wait a second, no, this isn't, but that's everybody's story. It's a delay. Nobody says that like my doctor was with me right away. It's almost, I hate to say it, but it almost makes it like a conspiracy. If every single situation is delay, when it's not a delay.
Yeah.
One of the doctors had to hear that of these hundreds and hundreds of people that didn't have a delay, that, maybe they would know. How come it's always a delay? And that's what makes me feel like it's something that they're concerned with from a legal perspective.
Yeah. I at the time, this was 22 years ago. And at the time, I was so young, I hadn't really even considered these ideas of conspiracies, et cetera. But I would have to, on some level, agree with that to the effect that there is really no such thing as that great of a delay. When a child is 2 years old and not saying mama, that's not a delay. That's a problem. When a child is 3 years old and has zero language, that's not a delay. That's a problem. So when you're sending parents away over and over and over again, and you're telling them, oh, it's a delay. Oh, they're not walking and they're 15 months. It's a delay. No, that's a problem. They should be ambulatory by 15 months. That's not normal. That's a problem. So, I kind of at the time took on this idea that, well, she is slower going than my first child, but my first child was extremely quick with everything. His first word was when he was 6 months old. He said, what? And he thought it was the coolest thing, that everybody thought he was the coolest thing. So he just started using language. And by 2, he had full sentences. So
Wow.
for her to not even be saying mama at 2 years old and him telling me, oh, that's normal. She's just taking more time. Every child speaks at a different time period. She'll get her words. That's not a delay. That's just not normal. And we need to look into it further. Now, to be fair to the hospital that I was going to at the time, when he finally did give us the referral upstairs to psychiatry, and I took her upstairs and, she was seen by a psychiatrist, they said, oh, we don't do this type of diagnosis here. We don't handle these cases here. You'll have to go to your regional center, your local regional center, which for us was Central Valley Regional Center. And so to be fair, no one in that entire hospital system had any idea about what they were looking at, which, again, it was 22 years ago. Now you would hope that they would all have some idea, because as the rate of autism is growing exponentially at this point, hopefully they've all got some idea of what the symptoms are. Now, I had taken her in and talked to her doctor about, she's lining up movie cases, she's lining up stuffed animals, she's, doing this behavior and that behavior and has this obsession and that obsession, and she's self-abusive. And I mean, there was a laundry list of things she was doing, and he literally only focused on her language. Oh, she'll get her language. Like he was missing the other 95% of our conversation. And that, I think, is where you can kind of lean more toward this idea of conspiracy, is you're shutting out everything else that a parent is saying and only focusing on one thing that potentially could be maybe a need for some speech therapy, right? Which is a little more normal. But why? That's a very good question. Why? Why wouldn't, because early intervention is, as a former educator, as a parent, early intervention helps to unlock their world. When she started to understand communication better, her whole world opened up. She started to understand everything. When she understood that when I was saying words to her, I was trying to get her to hear me and hear about something. I'm talking to you about your food. I'm talking to you about where we're going. When she finally understood that I wasn't just saying words to the air, and she had learned to communicate slightly with me, it was a whole new world for us. It was a game changer, but she didn't get that until we had intervention, until she was in an ABA program. It was an ABA/floor play program. We're still very close with her first program director. She's a very good friend of mine. And that was just world-changing, life-changing, game-changing. I mean, I can't even express. I was so overwhelmed as a young single parent with these two kids and this, that it really does. Early intervention is key. And that's part of why I don't understand why doctors are taking so long with these diagnoses. Because if you can get the early intervention, you can open up their world so much sooner. And it really what that prevents is not just a lot of angst for the parent. What that prevents is a lot of angst for the child. Years. I mean, we're talking about preventing years of anxiety and stress and sadness and, internal repression of what they want to get out there, their expression of any kind. So yeah, I don't know 100% about conspiracy, but I would say it's not that far-fetched.
I know. And I really don't like going down the conspiracy rabbit hole, because I try to avoid rabbit holes because I was so good at jumping in them for so many years. And I'm realizing the less I jump in, the higher quality of life I live. So, but it's just something that comes up. Is there anything that stands out for you that you know now that you wish you knew then?
No. In fact, I can say that I'm really glad that I learned the way that I learned.
Okay.
If I would have known then what I know now, I would have missed out on a lot of what has connected us as mother and daughter. We are so connected because of the extremes of the experiences.
Mm.
So knowing now that I could have, mitigated a meltdown quicker, that I could have changed a situation by just avoiding this or that, it would have lessened our connection as mother and daughter, but also I think I wouldn't have learned, how can I put this? I wouldn't have learned that she's capable of anything. So if I would have thought that, okay, well, if we just avoid this new situation, then I don't have to deal with this meltdown or with that behavior or with this embarrassment or that embarrassment or whatever, that you feel when you're this young single mom doing this parenting thing, I would have just avoided them. But instead of avoiding them because I didn't know, I just went head in and I just said, well, let's see how this goes. And sometimes it went really, really bad. And I went home and I would be so exhausted that I couldn't hold my eyes open. And, I had to sleep it off because it was just that horrible and stressful. And other times it went really well and it was surprising and wonderful. And it was just this life of becoming together. It was just this experience of growing through experiences. So no, there's really nothing that I wish I knew then. Maybe I wish I would have known more about those communication apps, although she still doesn't really prefer them. I really think that in some cases, having been an educator, I think in some cases they are very helpful for kids who want to use their words to express. She kind of prefers to just like show me and write it out for me and things like that. So, but no, as far as any other, do I wish I could have changed anything or do I wish I would have known anything specific? There's really nothing specific. I've really enjoyed, I say that hindsight is 2020. I've really enjoyed the journey. And, now I have these great stories I can share. So
I love that answer. I've never heard that that question responded to in that way, and I love that. It's very it sounds very enlightened. You sound like a very enlightened being and very present to be able to say that, and I appreciate that answer. So, can you tell us what was what does a bad day in your life look like? What was a bad memory, just to kind of give us perspective on sort of the not as fun days that you experienced?
Oh, the one that I only slightly remember this day. That's how bad it was. And the story is absolutely in the book in some detail. There was a particular day. She was about 6 years old. There are many stories before that lead up to it, to kind of give a background to the heightened nature of my stress level at the time. I was in college. I was working part-time at a coffee house, so my income had gone down significantly because prior to that I had been working for a TV station and making much more money. So I'm living in this tiny house, making almost no money. I have this job. I have my full-time college, schedule. I have a son who's now playing flag football and, doing other things. So I have that schedule going on. And then I have this little girl who is just in constant meltdown mode. And on this particular day, and I don't know for how long it was going on, but I had just about all but lost my mind already that day. And I believe in the book, I say something like it was audible when my mind broke. And I still remember it was nearly an audible sound in my head. And she had been melting down for quite a while and just screaming. I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't figure out what she wanted. I couldn't figure out how to fix it. My son had decided, I said, honey, why don't you go play games? And he's like, yeah, good idea. So he had gone in to play video games in his room and she's just screaming. And we're sitting in the living room. And I finally sit down because I had this vision of just picking her up by her ankles. This is about to get graphic, okay? But this is real. I had this vision of picking her up by her ankles and just painting the walls. And I mean, literally just painting the walls with this child because I just was no longer sane. I was literally in that moment insane. Now, of course, I did not touch her. I didn't have the emotional or physical capacity to even move. I remember I sat down on the couch and I was like a zombie. I was just this blank space, just sitting there. Her noise no longer even in my ears. It was completely tuned out. There was nothing going on in my head but silence and this awful Twilight Zone-like vision of just blood, perfect red splattered everywhere and ink, so that would be the most extreme day in my entire life of being an autism parent or even a human being. That was the most extreme day. And I was in the doctor's office the next day and I was like, you got to give me something. I can't do this anymore. And he's like, you sure you don't want to medicate her? And I said, no, she still has a developing little brain. She's already got some neurological issues going on. I don't want to interrupt that with these chemicals. And she's not the one that has A, B, C, D, E, F going on. I am. I need you to just bring this down a notch and see how it goes. And he says, okay, well, if you have anything like that happen again, especially on medication, go to the ER, come into the office if we're open. And, it helped for probably, I believe I was on anti-anxiety meds for about 6 years. And then she calmed down and I calmed down and life changed and a new phase started and I was off meds. But that is kind of what I really feel like some of us go through and we don't really get a chance to talk about. And I think we almost get shamed into not talking about it, because the second you get vulnerable, the second you say, I wanted to paint the walls with my child, people are like, wait, whoa, she's crazy. She might be actually like hurting her kids. No, that's not how it went. But that's what a bad day looks like.
Yeah.
And yet I still wouldn't trade it, because again, I did learn how to sit with all of that going on inside of me and stay calm. I learned how to do that in that moment. And I've never had to experience that again, because I was able to learn from it and then figure out a way to mitigate it, figure out a way to find out what my specific need at that moment was, which for me, it was anxiety meds, and handle it, like a big girl, like a grown up, like a parent. And I did. And I hope nobody has to have that experience. But if you do, there's no shame in it. Go get yourself some help, whether it's counseling, whether it's telling your spouse, tag, you're it. I got to go. I got to get out of here.
Yeah.
Whatever you need to do, you just got to do it. But that's what a really horrible day looks like. It does not look like that anymore. It does get easier. I know people don't like to hear that when they're in the middle of their awful. They don't like to hear, oh, it gets easier. Just hang in there. But it does. It gets easier. It truly, truly gets easier.
Thank you for sharing. I know that it's probably about a month ago. I'm on a phone call with Tri-Counties, which is our regional center here, and just a casual conversation about my son being in the back room and the lock. We have to put a lock on the door because he'll come and tear down the whole kitchen or whatever. And a couple of days later, somebody said, "Oh, somebody stopped by and they left their card here. They want you to contact them." And I said, okay, well, when I get home, I'll take a look at it. And I get home and it's Child Welfare Services. Oh. And I mentioned on the phone that I locked my son in a room, and, and it's those kind of things that make you want to just keep your mouth shut. I was just trying to share, and next thing you know, I had to go get a letter from my doctor saying that I wasn't, mistreating my kid by locking him in the room, and so I appreciate you sharing that. And I identify with that crazy. And yeah. I think it's like, we need to talk about that though, because to have that moment doesn't make us crazy. And
no, I think it makes us too normal, because it's absolutely normal to not live in a situation that is 100% chaotic 100% of the time. That's not normal. And when we're forced into that situation because we love our children so damn much, we're forced into it, because there's no way I'm going to give this crazy situation to somebody else and think that they're going to love her more and hurt her less than if I sit here in my silence and just sit with it and go through it and let it play itself out. So no, it's not crazy. We are not crazy. It is 100% normal to not be okay in the chaos that frequently for that long period of time. We're with our kids 24/7, 365 days a year. They go to school for 6 hours at a time. the teachers are sending them home saying, oh, we don't see that behavior here. Yeah, because you have them for 6 hours a day.
Right.
And for the school year, not including, these holidays and those holidays and summer breaks and overnight. And so, and you're getting paid for it, right? And we're not.
Yeah.
At least not until later in life when they are adults, So no, you're not crazy. And I can tell you that if she was the tearing things down type, I might have tried to find another way to figure out some kind of larger playpen style situation.
Yeah, I have to figure that out. I haven't fully. And then when you move, it's challenging. But I'm grateful for this show because to have a place to be able to talk about those moments, because it's hard to. Because I've felt crazy before. I felt like I'm losing it, and all those things, and questioned if it's just this moment or if I'm going over the edge. And where can you talk about that? How do you? Unless you have that close friend, and most likely, unless they're in the same situation, they might be able to hear you, but they don't really hear you. So it's a lonely feeling. So I appreciate that you shared that. I'm grateful for this show, for providing a place for us to talk about these kind of things. And can you tell us a little bit about your journey of self-care? Is that something that's important for you? Have you had to develop a self-care routine throughout your life? Can you tell us a little bit about what you do to take care of yourself and how that affects your life and your mothering?
Self-care, that was hilarious. That was hilarious back in the day. Self-care was non-existent when she was younger. I didn't even, people would say, oh, make sure you're taking time for yourself. Kate, say hi.
Hi.
Hi. Okay.
Be good girl.
Yeah, be good girl. Go play.
Pepsi.
Okay. Self-care when she was little was not a thing. I didn't even know it was a thing. I was the mom. I had all these responsibilities. There's only 24 hours in a day. I'm just one person with two hands. And there just was no me. I say that exact phrase, that quote a lot. There was no me. I did not exist. I did go to college. I did put myself through school. I did show up for class. But aside from doing that for myself, there was no me. There was flag football games, and there was meltdowns, and dinners to be made, and baths to be had, and laundry to do, and floors to clean, and messes to pick up, and I just didn't exist. And then my sons got older, and she got older, and they were able to stay with her for short periods of time. And so I was able to rediscover a little bit of myself. And I think it's the many phases of being a special needs parent. And I think people in general go through phases of life. You get married, that's a new phase. You have kids, that's a new phase. Your kids go off to college, that's a new phase. But I think that as special needs parents, we go through many, many more phases. And one of the phases that I did get to enter into was a place where I did exist again. And my sons would stay with my daughter, and I would go to the gym, or I would go get a massage, or I would go for a long run or a long walk with my bestie from college, who I hadn't really seen in like 12 years because, there was no me, and there was no time for friends or dating or any of that. So self-care is so extremely important, but it's also important to recognize that it's okay if you don't have time for it. And for me, I say that almost as a way of reassuring myself that this next phase is going to be okay. Because as my youngest, he is 16 and a half, but he's also in online college, and he works a job. And the more that he grows and the more that he's getting ready to go, the more time I'm with her again and the less time I have for myself. And so I'm getting ready to phase into another period of time where there is no me. And by myself, me, of course, I still exist, and I still, shower alone and whatever. But as far as there being no time for self-care separate from her. And so I think I'm trying to learn because I'm not enjoying this process. I'm not enjoying this process of understanding that there will once again come a time where me outside of or away from her doesn't exist. But I'm trying to understand that it's okay. It's okay that way. This is the assignment that I've been given. I have been blessed to have time periods where there have been instances of me time, instances of self-care time. And now that she's older, it has gotten a little easier. She will let me go in. I leave the door open in the bathroom, but I can go in and take a bath for an hour, or I can take a nap on the couch now that she's older and not worry about her leaving the house, because I would hear the door. Actually, it's probably why I worry a little less. Our door creaks intentionally. I don't fix it intentionally.
Yeah.
But so I think as far as self-care goes, when you have time, take the time. Take the time when you have the time. I don't have any family in the state that I live in. They all live in the state next to me. So if you have family and they can take your kids, take that time to do something, anything for yourself, a massage, a run, a gym trip, a dinner with your girlfriends, an afternoon out with your husband or wife, whatever. But recognize also that it's okay if you don't have time. There are little times that we take for ourselves after the kids go to bed. We stay up a little late just to de-escalate and unwind, and that's okay too. I think for me, staying sane in part is being in acceptance, staying in this place of acceptance. This is how it is. And I'm pretty sure it's okay. We're all still alive. Everybody ate today. Everyone got told I love you before they went to bed. Everyone's safe in bed. I don't have people running around out there not knowing what they're doing, so self-care, sometimes it's there and sometimes it's not.
Okay. Well, that's I don't know if I could do it. I don't know if I would. I mean, I have my kids, they help make time for my self-care because they like the dad that goes and does his meditation and his exercise so much more than they like the one that doesn't. I don't know, maybe it's all in my head, but so the acceptance, where does this emotional intelligence come from? Were you born with it, or did you has this grown for you? I mean, one of the things that we wanted to talk about in this show was finding gratitude, being grateful in the mess, in the experience as it is. You talked about acceptance. Where did you get this knowledge?
I lived it. I lived all of it. I've been living it for 22 years. And I don't mean I've been living acceptance. I mean, I have lived the shit by myself for so long. I think when you live it, when you spend so much time in these situations, in these circumstances, and then the only time that you do have, the quiet, silent time when they finally fall asleep at night and you're alone and you're left with your thoughts and you're left with yourself and you're left with reflection and mindfulness, because it's all you have to think about. It's all you do all day. It's all you experience constantly. And so you think through things and you get to a place. For me, I think I had enough experiences of being broken, first of all, just feeling completely and utterly exhausted and broken and tired and wanting so much more out of life and thinking that I wasn't getting it. Having this perspective of disempowerment. Why is this always happening to me? Why does this happen? Why me? And then recognizing, well, why not me? It has to happen to somebody. And I clearly can handle it. So this is it. This is what's going on. And you have to accept it. It's what I got, And then kind of being able to sit with it and recognize I'm not really missing out. In fact, I'm a really freaking blessed person. I take walks in the middle of the day with my daughter in the summertime or in the wintertime or whenever I want. And it's beautiful outside and we're just kicking it and doing our thing. And everyone else is sitting inside of a box with hardly any windows, working on their computer or doing their manual labor jobs. And I'm blessed. Like, yeah, I had to go through some shit to get here, but I'm not missing out on anything. You know, I have a 1/4 acre property that I grow food on every year, and I'm out there playing in the dirt with my hands, and I've got a heavy boxing bag in the backyard that I can go out and beat up if I want. And I can do it any time of the day that I want to. And I just tell her to come along with me. And she does. And I think when you gain the perspective of, I really feel like, okay, maybe if I put it this way, when you gain the perspective of changing the questions that you ask yourself, changing the things that you tell yourself. So instead of asking disempowering questions like, why is this always happening to me? Why does this happen? You know, why me? Changing that to empowering statements or empowering questions, like, how can I help? What can I do? How can I make this better? What else can we do? Like, if we can't do this, why can't I ever go do that? Well, why ask yourself that question? It just is what it is. Ask yourself a different question. Okay, well, what else can we do? And I call it getting into the solution. For me, it's about getting into the solution and just avoiding even asking the questions about the problems. Those are a waste of your time. You know, sitting in the problem is a waste of your time. Once you've already sat in it long enough and learned from it, it's time to get into the solution and ask yourself empowering questions. What can I do? Who do I love? How did I show love? Can I help? Who can I serve? What, you know, just empowering yourself, changing your perspective, staying in that mind frame rather than in a mindset where you feel like you lack control, you lack freedom, you lack ability, we don't lack just because we have our circumstances. We have to get creative. Don't get me wrong. We have to get extremely creative, but we're not lacking. We just have to do it different. And when you get into that mindset, you really can change your whole life. I really feel like there's a saying that I literally, on the hardest days, I still say it over and over and over again in my head. Life is not happening to me, it's happening for me. It's not happening to me, it's happening for me. It's not happening to me, it's happening for me. And I will repeat that sometimes a dozen times on the hardest days. And by the time I'm done repeating it, it has dawned on me why this situation or that situation or circumstance is happening. And a lot of times, you know, say you're hitting every red light, for example, and then you get to that 5th red light and you see a car accident and you think, man, I might have been that car had I hit every green light. Life is kind of like that. And if you look at it like that, like, this isn't happening to me, it's happening for me. Oh, that guy broke up with me, but then 2 months later you meet the man of your dreams and you marry him. You know, it didn't happen to you, it happened for you. You just have to, you got to roll with it sometimes. You just got to roll with all of it.
Yeah.
You just got to roll with all of it.
My friend sent me a quote recently in line with this, and it was, things aren't falling apart, they're falling into place.
That's a good one too.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So that tells you where I was recently. But anyway, no, I hear the wisdom in what you're saying. It's one of the blessings I think of being a special needs parent, is I believe that some of the places that I've been put, that some of the places that I've been in and experienced push me to the edge, where it was to evolve and become enlightened, or jump and it become abyss. And so the fact that by being here, I had to evolve, and I hear a lot of wisdom in your in what you're saying, and it makes me think that some of it came from the adversities in your journey.
All of it. All of it came from the adversities in my journey. Life as a child was black and white for me. It was either right or it was wrong. You either liked this person or you didn't. You know, you either hated this person or you didn't. I mean, everything was black and white. There was no gray area. And what I've learned through all the adversity is it's all gray area. So I learned it all through the adversity. And I'm so grateful. Honestly, I can't imagine still living in that mindset that I was raised with and that I grew up with. Even up to and including my ex-husband leaving, that was so traumatic for me, because that's just not how I was raised. That's just not what happens. And so I would say that for me, as far as an emotionally growing human being, was the jumping off point of my growth. And then, of course, Caitlin's diagnosis, the experience with her shots, then her diagnosis, and every experience since then has really, it's all been emotional evolvement. Is that a word?
Yeah, it is today.
Yeah,
it is now.
It is now. Yeah.
Well, I have to say that one of the things I've noticed from our conversation is I can't say that it's one particular thing that you said that I can credit this to, but you've inspired me to continue my journey as a parent. And I feel I got that from your energy, or maybe it's from something you said specifically, or your the way you carry yourself. But I want to thank you for inspiring me, because I've had some days that have been weaker days, especially recently for me. So I want to thank you for that. And I'm sure our listeners feel similar. So I want to thank you for, taking the time to be on the show. What's something you're excited about, moving forward in your life with your children or your daughter? You want to share something, and any words of any final thoughts that you'd like to leave us with? Please.
Well, don't blink. Don't blink, because honestly, even on the worst days, I look back and I think about some of the worst days and they make me laugh. Of course, again, hindsight is 2020. Everyone, please believe me, hindsight is 2020. I did not enjoy those days while I was in the midst of those days. But looking back, I would take 100 more of those days for just 5 or 10 more of the most amazing days that we've had as a family. And, now that my oldest has grown and gone, and my youngest is on his way to being grown and gone, and I can look back on 25 years of parenting and say that it was really, really hard. It was really hard, especially with a special needs child. There were some days where I just wasn't sure I was going to make it, but I did. I made it. You will make it, and you will get to 25 years, and some of your kids will grow and go, and some of them won't. And that's okay too, but you will miss it. You will miss it. You will miss it. You will miss it.
Wow.
I miss it. I miss it every day. I miss it every day. And every time my phone rings, I think to myself, ooh, is my son calling? And of course he's 25. So no, he doesn't hardly ever call. So you will miss it. And then if you feel like you identified with anything that I've talked about, especially the painting the walls story, you can find my book on Amazon. It's Life with a Side of Autism. Subtitle is Raising Kate from Beginning to Becoming. But otherwise, yeah, just don't blink. On the hard days, tell yourself, I'm going to miss this. I'm going to miss this. It might help. It helps me today. When Caitlin is having a really, really horrible day, I tell myself, you're going to miss this. You're going to miss this. Because I know that my youngest is going to come home from work and he's going to do the dishes for me or whatever I ask him to do, because he can see that I've had a rough day, and it's going to be a very sweet ending to a really rough day, and I am going to miss it. Wow. And I already missed some of the other days. So even with you have a few kids of your own, and you say that they're super helpful to you right now, but they are going to grow and they will have to go. And so don't blink. You will miss this, all of it. Even the bad.
I'm going to say that. I'm going to say that to myself. Did you, do you keep a blog, or are you strictly an author, a book writer?
The only blog style type thing that I have right now is on Instagram. It's at raising_Kate. Otherwise, no, I don't currently have a blog. I do have plans to kind of expand into maybe connecting with our community a little more. But as you all know, we are very busy people. We have our special people that we take care of every day. And then we also have households and jobs and, other things to care for. So it may be a little while. It'll get done eventually. But for now, you can find us on Instagram at raising_Kate.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you for being on the show today. If you have a link handy to your book, I'd like to put it in the show notes. If you don't, I'll look it up and put it in the show notes so that we can all get a copy and check out your story in more detail. And I would love if you stayed connected with the show and we can touch base down the road and carry our journeys on together. For me is better than alone. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, I'm gonna miss this, so I'm gonna remember that. Have a
Yes.
wonderful day and a
You
wonderful
too.
evening and a wonderful life. Until next time.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Gonna be take care.